what you turn into. And I'm very good with anger, very good. And anyone who knows me knows I'm processing aggressively through this. I'm not ignoring any aspect of it. But when I can't think of anything to feel, I make sure I go straight to anger. Sorrow is so hard to function in. And I realized that, I've been in the ministry for 30 years, and I have so many different things. I wanted to hand out stuff, but you don't get anything because you're not in my club. You don't get stuff. When your child dies, I'll give you some useless piece of paper to make you feel comfortable, and a wristband. They had wristbands. They gave me, I swear they gave me a T-shirt. I swear at the support group I got a T-shirt. I've been there and I've done that. I got the hands out and the T-shirt. It really happened. It really happened. Now, of course, I stood by the T-shirt table knowing they were giving them out, and I wanted one. But seriously, but I've been in ministry for 30 years, and the thing I've seen is, because my ministry has changed over and over and over and over again, that people in my life changes as well. And the people in my life are so used to seeing me one way, they have no idea that I wasn't born that way. I lived in Laughlin, and I had dreadlocks, and I had just grown them out on a whim, grown my hair out on a whim, and found out that my hair dreaded naturally. So one day when I cut off my dreads, people say, "Oh, you're not Paisley anymore." I was like, "My gosh, I've had a crew cut, since 1976." I think I had a crew cut pretty much all the way up to 1973 as well. So, I've noticed this, and I've seen this, and I said, well, the reality is that the ministry is my experience with Christ, and the ministry is how I live my life, and everything else is just the illusion that comes with it. And I realized that, I just didn't really want to sing about this. I didn't want to sing about this experience. I still love music. I mean, music has been my love my whole life. And this didn't suck, by the way, what I did. But notice we're talking 3 songs. No, I didn't mean it suck for you, Jeff. I meant my experience was it didn't suck for me. I know it was great for you. I wouldn't have brought it. But but notice I only did 3 songs. I didn't want to go for an hour and a half of it either. Because my heart's broken and my mind is somewhere else, and my entire ministry has always been about one thing and one thing alone. It's never not been about it. And I know someone's thinking it's always been about Paisley. Everything's about it. It's true. It's always been about Paisley, and Paisley has always been about evangelism. Always been about evangelism. It has always been. I will do anything to get anyone to listen to my testimony of my experience with Christ. I will do anything, even exploit the death of my son, because I've done everything else. If you told me one day you're going to wear dresses and combat boots and stand on the street and scream about Jesus, I would have said, honey, that'll never happen. That'll never happen. Because I have nothing against it, I just never saw that in my future. And I did it with such conviction, well, because once I did it, I kind of dug it. But I was a little bit of a cross-dressing late bloomer. But I certainly never saw myself as a motivational speaker, that's for sure. And I know when I watch what I've done tonight, what it's going to look like. But the thing that I want to say is this, is that I have been fearless in my Christianity. I have been fearless for the majority of the 30 years I've been a Christian, but I've been fearless for the last decade. Anyone knows me knows I'm afraid of everything else. I'm afraid of everything that moves. I'm afraid of every bug on the planet. I'm afraid of the elements. I'm afraid of everything, but I'm not afraid of my testimony, and I'm not afraid of confronting humanity with the truth of said testimony. You add to it, I've just had the worst thing that could happen to me happen. Well, now we just have a lot of we don't care happening inside us right now. There's so much I don't care. There's so much like, well, I don't care how I look. I don't care how people perceive me. I don't care. if I say it the wrong way. I don't care. There's so much I don't care, and there was so much I don't care before. I mean, we all grow to the share place where we can just say and do whatever we want and not care what people think of us, and a massive event that's scarier than everything I'm afraid of happening. I'm kind of like, well, now I know I really am doomed, so I guess there's really nothing to be afraid of ever again, because who cares? And the thing I really learned from this is everyone else's philosophies. Everyone else's philosophies, and I'm going to say this to all my friends that came out for my birthday. You people are so full of shit, I can't believe it. But no, the truth is, everyone in the room is talking to me one-on-one, or most of you are talking to me one-on-one about this. No, I'm just kidding. But the truth is, I do perceive humanity as profoundly full of shit right now. Because I've heard people's philosophies come at me to comfort me in my grief from people who've never walked in it. I've lost a parent, I've lost a potential spouse, I've lost my treasured cat. I've lost. This is something completely different. It's like saying you have a sprained ankle and you understand my brain tumor. You know, even better, you have a brain tumor and you understand my Lou Gehrig's disease. You know what? Everything is different. Every person is different. Every experience is different. And every person I've met who's lost a child, it's different. It's different because it's based on the type of relationship they had with their kid too. And it's based on how the kid died. It's based on how old the kid was. It's based on how full of shit they are in their religious philosophies. You know, but I mean, if you go on my Facebook, I probably shouldn't have said that, but I'll edit it out. If you go on my Facebook and read some of the nonsense people have said in the last 24 hours, oh, you know, he's looking down on you and smiling. He's looking down on me and smiling tonight. If that's the best he can do in heaven, heaven sucks. You know, him coming to my show. You know, really, I mean, gosh, it's like, you know, someone said, look for him in your dreams because that's how you'll know he's okay. I go, anyone who knows the kind of dreams I have, no. I mean, I've had dreams of him playing drums all night, and I woke up and I said, if you're coming back as a poltergeist, I'm getting an exorcist. You know, I'm not doing this. I'm not playing this. But the thing I've learned is, until you know it all, you don't know it all. And in this one area of life, I know a lot more than I did 2 months ago. And the one thing that I do know is none of it matters. None of it matters. None of it. There's so much that doesn't matter that comes crashing down on you when you're standing there looking at your dead son's body. There's so much that you realize doesn't matter. Because everyone has some kind of religious philosophy. Everyone has some kind of spiritual path. Everyone somehow finds some kind of comfort in things happening for a reason, and nothing happens by accident, and there's a purpose, you know. If I had already offended Ed with the full of shit thing, I would have been doing this during that. But everybody has this stuff floating in, and we do this to make ourselves feel better. I'm going to think good thoughts and keep the airplane in the sky. Well, all that it comes to a screeching halt when you're staring at your dead kid. And it comes right down to, did God do this? Did God let this happen? Are God's hands tied in events like this? Am I being punished? I really want to address that really fast. My ego is so big, do we really have to add to the fact that God has to kill things in my life to punish me? That those beings have no value and purpose? That it's all about me? I've not once thought for a second this was about me. Sure, I've thought, is God mad at me? You know, because I feel responsible. I feel incredibly responsible. But it's not about me. I've said to people, I go, this isn't about me. My dad said to me, God's testing you. And I go, God can just send me a multiple choice quiz. He didn't have to kill my son to test me. God's not testing me. There's nothing to test here. I'm not turning on him. Not for a second. There's nothing to test. He knew that. There's nothing to, I knew that. Neither of us are surprised that I'm still standing strong in the Lord through all this. This was my son's experience, and we get to watch it, and we get to feel the ramifications of it. But everybody believes that these things all mean something. They're all signs. They're all part of a tapestry that is our destiny. Everyone believes this stuff. Somehow, some way, something, that there's nothing random. There sure as hell is nothing random about my kid dying. Give me, try selling me that and surviving that conversation. Try doing the shit happens things. People having, we live in a rough world. You know what? but everybody believes, that there's some purpose to everything. Everybody believes that stuff. And the one thing that I saw more than anything, that I see more than anything in all of it, is that the condition of our soul matters. The condition of our soul matters, and nothing else matters. I like to be a vegetarian. You want to go hunting and eat venison. It doesn't. It doesn't. You want to drown yourself in unbearable Christian music that's on Christian radio? God bless you. I still want to listen to Alice Cooper. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. I quit smoking, you didn't. It doesn't matter. And the list goes on and on. Well, Paisley, you're the minister, and you know what the Bible says about all this stuff. Yeah, I know exactly what it says. I also know it says what to put emphasis on, and what it puts emphasis on. And my entire ministry has had its emphasis on the condition of the soul and the way we treat people. Ed was mentioning the other night that he's never heard me talk about what we were talking about at dinner the other night, that I talked about young people and drugs, and he goes, you never preach on this stuff. And I really don't. I really don't, because I always figure if you present God as real and Jesus as the bridge to God, effectively, people will walk across that bridge and they'll find out all this stuff anyways. Why not just tell them the good news? Why not just tell them the good news? Well, not much good news when you're staring over your dead kid. And, God bless everyone in the room who hasn't said to me, well, at least he's in a better place. Like, I care. That made me feel good. Oh, he's with Jesus. Yes, right. The only thing I find hope and faith in this life is kidnap my child and won't give him back. Yeah. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Forgive me if we have a little hard time communicating sometimes. But, or he died doing something he loved. I love sushi, so if I choke on a piece of shrimp, don't worry about me dying, because I love sushi. Oh my gosh. Really? He choked on a Whopper. Paisley choked on a Whopper. He went out with a smile on his face. No, he went out choking and regretting all of his life that he was missing. And my son suffered. My son suffered. He didn't die in a second. He suffered. He had a massive heart attack out there after his accident. And he was in excruciating pain, and he suffered, and he died. And he was choking on his own blood. And we live with this. We live with this. His life did not matter. My gosh, is that like the awfulest thing you can say about your kid? His life didn't matter. It didn't matter what music he listened to. It didn't matter what clothes he wore. It didn't matter who his friends were. It didn't matter what his dreams were. It didn't matter what his future was. None of it mattered. You know why it didn't matter? Because it never happened. 20 years is a second. 20 years is a second. It was 20 long years when he was alive, and then when he died, it was gone in a second. It was like, he never became anything other than the person he had been. And so the rest of us, and all humanity who's alive, we live our lives with the assumption that we're going to be better tomorrow. We're going to be different tomorrow. We're going to be thinner tomorrow. We're going to, you know what I mean? We're going to start exercising after the new year. We do this. I'm going to get a better job. I'm going to make a better record. I'm going to do something to make something good. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you're dead. It just seems really heated and important when you're alive. But when you're alive and you're staring over the carcass of your child, his life was more important than mine. His life mattered more to me than mine ever did. I respected him. I all but worshipped him in his intelligence, in his talent, in his humor, and in the things he did that he didn't have to try to do. One of our last conversations before he died, meaning one of our last arguments the day before he died, was he said, "What kind of son do you wish you had had? What would have been the perfect son for you?" As if that came on the end of me criticizing him, by the way. And I looked at him and I said, "Are you kidding? Are you kidding? You are exactly everything I would have wanted in a kid. You have all my musical ability and more. You are incredibly gorgeous. You love the Lord, and you're called into ministry at the exact same time of life that I was. The apple hasn't even left the tree here." I said, "And all the other crap you're into, that's what you do now. And maybe you'll do it forever. But I learned stuff from it. I learned stuff from our differences. But who you are essentially, meaning in essence, is everything I wanted when I dreamt of having a boy. Everything I would have wanted. Down to his fixation on the Ramones. I mean, down to all of it. Down to all of it. Everything about him. And yet, you know, he, of course, thought that he was inadequate, he was insecure, and he figured that the whole world judged him as hard as he judged the world, and which is a youth thing. But in reality, none of it mattered. Because that essence is gone. And that essence had nothing to do with his hobbies, and with his proclivities, and with his addictions, or with his whatever bad thing you could pin on a person, and every good thing. It just was. It's just who he was. It's just that thing that you could be blind, deaf, and dumb and still know he walked into the room. It's gone. And that thing, we're born with it, and that thing goes with us when we die, and everything else doesn't matter. And the only thing that makes everything else matter is what we do with that amazing thing that is us. It's what we do with it. It's what we do with it. You know, if one more young person that knew him comes to me and says, "I just want you to know Frisco touched a lot of lives." The last person that I said, "You know what? Do you honestly think we didn't know that?" Madonna is only Madonna to her fans, to her family. She's just part of the family. You don't think we knew this guy? We had him for 20 years. You had him for 20 seconds. We know how amazing he was. We know. It was never in question. No one ever heard me say, when all the things I complained about my son, no one ever heard me say, "I don't think he's going to amount to much." No one's ever heard me talk about my kids like that. I have 3 amazing children that have excelled the things I'm good at that they have in them times infinity already, which is exactly what parents want to say. That's exactly what we want to say. We want them to be just like us, but then we want them to be better at it. younger, better, and better looking, and hopefully have more opportunities to succeed more. That's what we want. And so what I've learned is what I already knew, but now I don't care to keep it in anymore, and with the risk of hurting feelings or offending people, is that we did not create ourselves. And the second we die, every single person that knows us, no matter what they believe, starts talking about God. Every single person starts talking about God and God's plan and God's purpose, and God needed an angel in heaven. Everybody talks about it. So I'm not the only one who's God obsessed here. I'm not the only one who's God obsessed, and anyone who's been around me through this process knows this is the most I've talked about God at one time since this happened without stopping. That I haven't turned into like psycho-evangelists after this. I've actually been very reserved, trying to decide what I was ever going to say on the subject. And yet, what I've seen is that everyone believes in God, everyone believes in something, and everyone starts pulling them into it. This is a God event when someone dies. It is a God event. If death is a God event, so is life. And if it's a God event and not an us event, and it certainly isn't a Frisco event, my gosh, Frisco within it wasn't even 24 hours, because that news thing was the next night, and that was at 7 o'clock at night. And in less than 24 hours, he was the new Messiah. I saw the thing, I couldn't believe what it looked like seeing it on the news, and how they just made him out to be this nature boy, and that he was just on this mission and in the spiritual realm. I mean, my gosh, they just turned him into something, and I was like, you guys were at my house filming, why didn't you come smell his room? Why did you find out what I was living with that guy? My gosh. Nobody thought higher of him than his family. It's physically impossible. Because when he wasn't on, and when he wasn't shining, and when he wasn't trying to impress his friends, his church, or his girlfriends, he was amazing anyways. He was amazing when he was sleeping. We walked by and said, that's an amazing expression of God. That's a God thing. And we always thought that, all of us have always thought that about our whole family. That's why our family gets along so well. That's why our family is going to survive this. Because we've always understood that it's who we are when nobody's looking that defines us, not what we accomplish. And as someone who's, made such a parade of accomplishments, I've done it to manipulate people to listen to me talk about the Lord. That's the truth. Everyone knows that. I've never even hidden that. I said, isn't it great? I tricked you all into coming to my church tonight. I always owned it. But what I know now, more than ever, is every second we waste judging others for their choices, and every second we waste judging ourselves and second guessing our own choices, we are not developing and serving and fine-tuning the one part of us that doesn't have the luxury of dying. The one part. Everything else has an end. Our lives have an end, our jobs have an end, our careers have an end, our relationships have an end, our ministries have an end. Everything has an end, even if it's just us dying and ending it. Except that part that lives forever, that part that's eternal, the God part. And the condition of that is all that matters. Because when I was standing over my dead son, the only thing that mattered at that point was, where is he right now? And everybody who's heard me preach for years knows how much I avoid hellfire and damnation sermons. I figure people watch me for an hour and go, that guy loves Jesus. He's sincere. That's not drugs, and that's not insanity. That's conviction that we're looking at. I figure, why do I have to say, and if you don't believe like me, then why do I have to do it? I'll tell you. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because God forbid you're ever standing over the body of your dead kid. God forbid. I can't imagine adding to that moment uncertainty. Can't imagine it. And the people that were around me during the 4 days he was in town and heard me talk about how on fire he was with the Lord had to have thought the same thing that night when this was all happening. They said, oh, thank God, at least one thing Paisley's not going to have to sort through. Because that's all I've done for 2 months is sort through. I have to sort through his stuff. I have to sort through his account. Hey, I'm getting $500 back from his taxes. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? I mean, seriously, forgive my sarcasm, but my gosh, how can you not go crazy when you're counting on your dead son's tax refund to help pay your tax debt? I mean, serious. I have certainty. I have certainty beyond certainty in my life. I am so anchored in the Lord. And I bragged about this. I've said I have the best relationship with the Lord of anyone I've ever met. I win. I've proved it. I've proved it. I've proved it. Because I don't hate God for what's happened. Now, if you tickle me, you'll find out I'm not really impressed with him allowing it to happen, that there's not a whole lot of, hot damn, I'm happy. But I've also developed a relationship with God where I hear his voice in my life, and he told me why he let it happen. And I'll say this, don't ask the question if you don't want to hear the answer, because I would never, ever want to know what I know now that I know it, had I known that answer was coming. But I will tell you this, Jesus has been faithful long before this happened. Long before this happened. That the second I knew this was happening when I was driving to the hospital, the second it finally hit me that everyone was lying to me and I was going to get there and find out my son was dead, the first thing out of my mouth was, I love you, son, but you will not drive a wedge between me and Jesus. That was the first thing out of my mouth about it. And everyone who was there that night heard me say it over and over again. And I've been saying it ever since. I'm hanging on for dear life. You know, I'm saying it to convince myself as much as anything. But the thing I always say is, it's kind of irrelevant what I do, it's what Jesus has done. And he is certainly not allowed a wedge to be driven in our relationship, no matter how angry I am, and no matter how hurt I am, and how hard it is for me to pray. And how angry I am at my son. And how angry I am at every person on the planet who has said something stupid. And I'll give you a hint. If anyone opened up their mouth, it was stupid what came out. Go through this and you just get to a point where even when someone says something nice, all you hear is something stupid. And I've said to people, that was really stupid. And they went, no, it wasn't. You imagined it. Let me say it again. And they say, oh, you're right. That wasn't stupid. My head's just spinning and it hasn't stopped. I haven't slept. I mean, I sleep all night and I take 4 naps a day, and I haven't slept since this has happened. I haven't got any sleep since this has happened, because you lose all control over what you think and feel when you're sleeping. So, you close your eyes and you relive those moments, and then you go into the weird dream place and you wake up.